Hopefully my internet stays.
Thanks for joining. I've set you to presentation mode now, Manfred.
Okay, thanks. In worst case, when I disappear, you have to take over again, or maybe we cancel it then.
Okay, yeah. Fingers crossed.
1 second. Start here.
Yeah. So, okay, wait a sec.
Yeah. Should we start?
Yeah. Feel free to start
Okay.
anytime. Maybe just one thing before you start, so we're not forgetting it. You might know it, but we'll have a market kickoff event. So for 1 day on the 20th of September. So everyone is joining together, join forces, and set up buy and sell offers on the Bisq network. So if you want to join, please. Give a thumbs up in the GitHub issue. We'll post the link in the description below after the call. And you are up to join us in this community activity. And there's also BSQ tokens. You can ask for compensation afterwards if you join this activity. I think it will be really great. I think we have lots of people already joining it, but still we are looking for more. So we are able to crack this 300 offers barrier we are trying to achieve. So yeah, so don't forget, get your payment accounts ready, put some Bitcoins into your wallet, and yeah, let's make it a great activity. Okay, sorry, Manfred. It's all up to you. Yeah, present.
Thanks for the invitation. I start the presentation now. Is the presentation visible?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, yeah, I want to give an introduction about the Bisq DAO, and this will be a series with a few videos where we're starting with the overview to get the basic ideas, and then diving deeper in follow-up sessions and getting more technical over time. So before we start with the DAO, it's the question why Bisq is requiring such a DAO. We have a recent event which makes it even more clear why Bisq requires such a DAO. As many of you will have heard probably, is Shapeshift changing their model that it requires an account to trade on Shapeshift. And yeah, the reason why they have to change to this model is because of regulatory pressure. So to run a critical infrastructure for the Bitcoin ecosystem, which exchanges are, I think the normal corporate model is just not the best model, because yeah, you're exposed as a company on pressure from your investors and on pressure from regulatory entities, which might be even come from a completely other country, like Shapeshift. They are located in Switzerland, but the pressure will likely come from the United States. And as they have a very long arm, they prefer to give to give up their old model and agree to the regulatory requirements. So we want Bisq to stay independent, and that's the reason why Bisq was never incorporated as a company. We never looked out for investors, and the Bisq DAO is basically the solution how to fund and how to organize Bisq. So what is Bisq? I mean, most of you probably will know already Bisq, but I just give a very, very short overview. The mission of Bisq is to provide a secure, private, and censorship-resistant way to exchange Bitcoin for national currency and other cryptocurrencies over the internet. And this mission is in many parts already achieved. So Bisq works pretty, on the security level, it works pretty good. On the privacy level and privacy protection of the users, it works pretty good. On the censorship resistant level, it works good on a technical aspect. So it's a peer-to-peer network over Tor, but it doesn't, it still lacks on decentralized funding and on the decentralized governance. So how the Bisq project is funded today? The users of Bisq are paying a trading fee in Bitcoin, which goes to the arbitrators. The arbitrators are an important aspect of the Bisq project, but of course they are not the only one who are working for the project. And so that's kind of like an imbalance that only the arbitrators are earning money at the moment. These fees are at the moment roughly 1 Bitcoin per month, and there are currently 2 arbitrators active. So basically, the project is still primarily funded out of pocket by founders and by altruistic contribution of the people who are working on the project. And there is no decentralized way at the moment to compensate other contributors because, yeah, the technical limitations, what we can do with Bitcoin directly, it would be just not feasible to distribute the trading fees to all the contributors in a fair way. And the second aspect is the governance. So how it is governed today. It's still a relatively small team of contributors. It has some centralized maintenance, administrations, and operation elements, which are in many areas not unavoidable. Like, for instance, holding the domain name, you cannot really decentralize the access to the domain administration and so on. So there will be those areas which are more connected to the legacy system are basically not really possible to decentralize. And we will see later that we are finding with the Bisq DAO a model to at least release the pressure and the problems in that area. The founders are the decision makers, are basically, and yeah, we would like to get the governance model for the project, which is more aligned to the decentralization and censorship resistance aspects and requirements of the project. So those 2 areas are not satisfying at the moment, and the Bisq DAO is basically an attempt to find a proper solution. So in the center of the Bisq DAO is a token. It's called BSQ, or a short form for Bisq. And this token is a color coin token, which is based on Bitcoin. We will explain in a follow-up video more the basic ideas and the concept of color coins and the technical details. In this session, just assume it's a kind of like an altcoin or like any token, similar like a counterparty token, but it's different to the existing color coin implementations because we are using and we are requiring some features which are not possible in the other implementations. So on the one side, we have the traders who are using the application. And on the other side, we have the contributors who are maintaining the application, who are building the project. And we want to enable a value exchange between the traders who are using it and the contributors who are putting effort into the project. This value exchange is at the moment not very well balanced because the only contributors who receive the fees what the traders are paying are the arbitrators. When we will start with a Genesis distribution. We got over time, we got donation from supporters in Bitcoin. We are using a part of this funds for funding a Genesis transaction. As said, BSQ is a color coin based on Bitcoin. So technically it's just Bitcoin, and we need to put some input into this Genesis distribution of the Genesis transaction of the BSQ, and we are taking this from our donations. So we are taking 2.5 Bitcoin, which is 2.5 million BSQ. 1 BSQ is 100 Satoshi. So when you calculate this with 2.5 Bitcoin, with 100 Satoshi, 1 BSQ, it ends up to 2.5 million BSQ. And we are basically coloring a Bitcoin Satoshi to a BSQ. And this BSQ gets distributed to past contributors. based on the merit, on their participation, what they have done for the project in the past. That has been already done a year ago, and we started the DAO in an informal way or in a non-technical way. The software implementation is still not out, but we are practicing the DAO already since October last year. And all the contributors who have worked in the meantime for the project, they are already earning BSQ. And when we are launching the DAO, we will redistribute the 2.5 million BSQ to the new number, including the contributions which was done in the last year. Also, the original distribution we did last August, 1 year ago. And in the meantime, many people have worked on the project, and we will rebalance then the distribution to have a fair distribution to basically all past contributors. The BSQ, it's important to say it's not an ICO. It has nothing to do with the concept of crowdfunding, of ICO, whatever. It's related to this. We are not asking for money. We are not selling tokens. We are just creating these tokens as a form of a decentralized issuance and funding model for the contributors and for governance, for voting. So nobody can buy tokens from Bisq founders or a project or whatever. It's just distributed to those who have worked on the project. So as said, the traders, they use BSQ and they're paying a fee in Bitcoin. The contributors who work to improve the projects, they are making Bisq more useful over time to the traders, and it's a healthy cycle that more contributors are working on the project, adding features, making the project better for the users. It should attract more traders, and then with more traders, they are paying more trading fees. So basically, that's it's already a kind of like a small economy between the traders and the contributors. It's just missing that the contributors are not getting directly the trading fees, because the trading fees are paid to the arbitrators. So that's already implemented since the beginning, and that works basically good. It's just missing the link that at the moment we don't have any way to fund the work of the other contributors from the trading fees. So here is where BSQ comes into place. The BSQ token has several different features. One is trading. So any BSQ stakeholders, initially it will be the people who have received BSQ from the Genesis distribution. They can sell BSQ over Bisq. It's traded like any altcoin, and anybody over Bisq can buy the BSQ. It's usually the traders who will buy BSQ, because traders can spend BSQ to get a discounted fee. So the trading fee can be paid either in Bitcoin, like it is now, or when the trader has bought some BSQ over Bisq, then he can use the BSQ for a discounted for a lower trading fee. With this discount, we want to incentivize the traders, the users of Bisq, to use BSQ and to give BSQ the value by the demand from the traders on the market. The token gets a value. The contributors, they can earn BSQ by submitting a compensation request at the end of each month. We're doing this already since a year, but at the moment it's a manual, not trustless process. Later, when the code implementation is completed, it will be all implemented in their application itself. So they file a compensation request, and when they get approved by the stakeholders, they can earn BSQ. And here is another function of the BSQ token. It's voting. So there are stakeholders. They vote with their BSQ on the compensation request and make basically the decision if a contributor get funded or not. And then there is another important feature, which is bonding. Bonding is kind of like setting up a kind of security deposit, but it's a special feature in the in the BSQ token. And as said before, there are some aspects of the project which cannot be decentralized, like holding the domain name or being an arbitrator. There's a high trust role. And to secure such high trusted roles, we are requiring that those persons who are taking these roles, that they have to bond a high amount of BSQ, basically a equivalent amount of BSQ of the maximum damage what they can do in their role. And in the case when they would violate the duties of the role, this BSQ can be confiscated by voting by the stakeholders. And by setting up such a bond, they also earn BSQ from the interest, because it has some costs to lock up BSQ long time. They cannot trade, so they are locked up. It's a little bit similar to multisig, but technically it's very different. But conceptually, it's like, you put some money in a multisig and you cannot access it until a certain time when you make a unlock transaction. But how it works technically, and more details I will explain in follow-up videos. Here it's just important, it's an important feature where we can extend the functionality of the Bisq DAO for securing those areas which are not possible to distribute, like holding the domain name. I cannot share my account details with other people in a meaningful way. And there are many other high trusted roles which will require bonding. So here we have a kind of more complete picture of the Bisq economy, but what's still missing is that there is no direct funding from the trading fees to the contributors. So the traders, they are not directly paying the contributors with the fee. And the mechanics, how this works, is as follows. The contributors, when they earn BSQ, they are creating new BSQ. It's a little bit similar like a Bitcoin miner. When a Bitcoin miner has found a new hash, then he has the right, he has the permission from the network that he can issue new Bitcoin. In our case, it's when a contributor gets voted okay by the stakeholders, then he's authorized to create new BSQ. How this creation of new BSQ work will be also explained in a follow-up video. So by creating BSQ, we are increasing the total supply of BSQ. So we are creating inflation every month. At the moment, we are roughly issuing around 50,000 BSQ. At the moment, as there is no market, we estimate one BSQ with $1 just to have something in common, that everybody has same valuation. Otherwise, it will not be possible to vote on contributors' request. When one contributor think a BSQ is 10 cents and another think it's $10, then the amount what they request in BSQ would be very different. So that would not work. So we have basically a kind of like consensus that at the moment we estimate the minimum value of a BSQ is around $1. And that's what contributors, when they file their compensation request, what they're using when they want to earn $5,000 a month for whatever work, then they file a request for 5,000 BSQ. And at the moment, we are roughly issuing around 50,000 BSQ per month. So after the Genesis distribution, every month we are creating new BSQ, and with this BSQ we are increasing the total supply. That means that every token becomes a little bit less valuable, because there are more tokens in circulation, and every token loses a little bit of value. It's inflation. On the other side, the traders, when they pay the trading fee, they are destroying BSQ, because they are burning BSQ, or technically it's uncoloring, like the Genesis distribution, or when a contributor is creating new BSQ, they are coloring Bitcoin into BSQ. And by destroying BSQ, it's the opposite process. We are uncoloring this BSQ, and they become only valuable as Bitcoin Satoshis again. So with this, we are decreasing the total supply. So from from the spending side on the traders, we have a deflationary pressure, and the monetary policy between those two streams. So on the one side, the inflationary pressure from the contributors who are creating new BSQ every month, and on the other side, from the traders who are using BSQ for paying the trading fees, and by that they are taking BSQ out of circulation and decreasing supply. We have kind of like a monetary policy where the value of BSQ can go up or can go down, depending if more BSQ are created or more BSQ are burned. So these core features, the BSQ core features, what we want to focus on, and what is the reason why we cannot use Bitcoin or any other altcoin or color coin implementation which is out there, is the decentralized issuance. That's really the most important part, that the contributors themselves, they are issuing new tokens. There is nobody pressing a button and sending them some money or whatever. That was considered in earlier projects where we didn't have found this solution. Also in earlier models for the DAO, where we thought, yeah, we need to set up a foundation in Switzerland, and then the foundation is doing this issuance or whatever. But that would always have created some centralized choke points, and the foundation would get under pressure and so on. So we wanted to get it really fully decentralized. And by that model, we have a really fully decentralized issuance model where every contributor by themselves, they are issuing themselves the tokens, and the network, every Bisq node will verify if everything is valid, and if it got voted okay. The stakeholders, the BSQ stakeholders, they will vote on their compensation request. They are basically making the decision if an issuance will become valid or not, and they are authorizing their contributors that they have the right to issue new tokens at the end of the month. The voting, it's a blind voting where during the voting process, nobody knows what other people are voting. And then there is a second phase where everybody's revealing what they have voted on. So their total result can be calculated. That will all be part in the application and in the UI. So nobody need to download anything extra or whatever. And any BSQ stakeholder can participate in this voting. In practice, it only makes sense for those who are really working on the project or who have at least the expertise to make a reasonable decision. When a contributor files a compensation request for some codes or for whatever, some other contribution to the Bisq network, then the people who do the voting, they should have enough time to evaluate the compensation request if it was justified, if the requested BSQ is really in a good balance with the added value from the contributor. So voting is here more a management function. It's not like a democratic right to vote and everybody should now vote. It doesn't make sense when people are voting just randomly. People really should be informed about what's going on and only vote when they really have enough information to make a reasonable decision. But of course, it's permissionless and it's open. Anybody with BSQ can participate in the voting. And the voting has a stake-based and a meritocratic element. It's roughly 2/3 of the voting weight is derived from the reputation, which means what the voter has earned in past contributions. So the people who work on Bisq over time and they are filing compensation requests and issue new tokens, they will use this accumulated amount, what they have earned in the past, to their voting weight. And then additionally, they use the stake, whatever they have in their wallet, the amount of BSQ, what they want to use for voting, and put this additionally to the weight. And the reason why we mix this together with this meritocratic approach is because we believe that the people who are working on the project should have more influence on important decisions, like people who are just have a lot of money and just buy tokens on the market and have no much clue and maybe not share a lot of the values of the project. And voting is not only limited to the compensation requests. Basically, all important aspects of the DAO, of the project, can be set up to voting. There will be several parameters, like, for instance, the amount of the trading fee is subject to voting. And basically, it can be extended. Anything which makes sense to be decided by voting will or can be become subject to voting. We don't want to over-engineer this, that every super small decision is done by voting, but anything which is important will be subject to voting. So that's very important to have a decentralized governance model. There will be nobody in the power situation to make an important decision. For instance, if an altcoin should be added or not, like that has been quite a few discussions in the past. And such decisions will be delegated to the stakeholders. And when the majority of the BSQ stakeholders have the opinion that one altcoin should be added or not, then it's their decision, and it's a meritocratic decision making process. Yeah, then the burning of BSQ, as already a little bit explained, it's uncoloring BSQ, and with that we have an interesting way how we are distributing small amount, because the trading fee, they're quite small amount. It wouldn't make sense and it wouldn't work to make a transaction with a lot of different outputs, because the mining fee would eat up everything. And by just removing tokens from the total supply, you make every stakeholder a little bit more rich, because when there are 2.5 million BSQ and after 1 month maybe 100,000 have been burned by trading fees, then there are only 2.4 million BSQ out, and everybody who had BSQ is a little bit more rich, because the whole value of the project is now distributed to 1.4 million tokens instead of 1.5 million tokens. So it's an elegant way how to distribute in an easy and fair way to all the stakeholders a small fee. And as already explained as well, the bonding is an important feature for an alternative to multisig security deposits, which is more flexible and remove a lot of the problems with multisig. A main problem with multisig is that you need somebody who is then the multisig key holder, and at the end you always introduce centralization points, because you cannot make a multisig with 50, at least not now, with 50 different key holders, and even then it would be super complicated when some key holders disappear and so on. With bonding, we are having a more simple model where any BSQ which are locked up in a bond can be confiscated by voting when somebody make a confiscation or a request for destroying this bond, in case when the bondholder violated his duty in a very severe way. And by that, it adds economic pressure on the bondholder to act according to their role requirements, and to not scam the project or whatever. So I want to wrap up here and just announce a little bit for the next sessions. In the next sessions, we will talk a little bit more about the colored coin concept. What's the core about this, and maybe also explain a little bit more in detail why we implemented our own color coin technology and not used one of the existing ones. We will look into the core features under the hood, how they work technically. In a later session, we will talk more about the proposal and the voting process, how they are implemented, and we will make a software demo. So stay tuned for the follow-up session if you want to learn more about the Bisq DAO. Yeah, now I think we are ready, and with this demo, with this session, and open for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Manfred, for presenting. Paul is asking, he thought that one BSQ is 100 Satoshi. did something change on that, or is there a final decision? How many satoshis will be used as the base for one BSQ?
Yeah, it's 100 satoshi. That's correct. Initially, it was 1,000 satoshi, but with further calculations, it would have turned out when the Bitcoin price will become very high, then the printing costs. As a contributor who is creating an issuance transaction for himself, he need to feed in some Bitcoin Satoshi for creating the BSQ tokens. And there is a relation between the value of this Bitcoin Satoshi and the value of the BSQ. And in the worst case, when the BSQ token will be very low, like $1, and Bitcoin will be very high, like $100,000 or so, then the costs for creating BSQ will be rather high. I think it would have been 10%. So when you want to create an equivalent amount of 10,000 US dollar, you need to put in Bitcoin in the value of $1,000. So for a contributor to issue himself 10,000 BSQ, he would need to feed this transaction with $1,000 in Bitcoin. And that was a little bit, too far away. So we wanted to get something like around 1%. Of course, it's very hard to predict because it depends on the value of Bitcoin and depends on the value of BSQ. And both, of course, are not hard to predict. But with lowering this relationship to 100 Satoshi, we have more space that we are not running into such problems. You can imagine it a little bit like the printing costs for printing dollar bills. The paper has some costs. So when the Fed is printing the dollar bills, they have to spend whatever $1 on a $20 note. So they are not completely free. And with creating BSQ, it's different. Like to a Bitcoin miner, a Bitcoin miner really creates a new Bitcoin out of thin air. But with a BSQ token, the contributor are creating a BSQ out of Bitcoin. Just that the Bitcoin satoshis which are used, like 100 satoshi for one BSQ, 100 satoshi I think is 100 $0.0001 dollar, and one BSQ should be around $1. So there should be a factor of 100 or 1,000 in between, and that should give enough headroom that that using a colored coin for creating a token, which is then the carrier for the economic value exchange in the Bisq system, that this works. And I think that's very important. Some people I think some people are interpreting any token as a currency, and I think that's you have to see it really different. I think there are also different layers. Like there is the internet itself, the information layer, and Bitcoin has created a new layer on top of that. That's the money layer. With the internet, with data itself, you cannot represent money because it was not protected, that it cannot be forged, and it didn't have a double spam protection. So the achievement of Bitcoin was to create a new layer over the information layer. And some people who say, blockchain, but not Bitcoin, they don't understand this. They see the blockchain as a database, and they interpret Bitcoin as an information layer. It's not the information layer; it's a money layer. And I think the same now happens with some people in the Bitcoin community. Of course, there is a lot of very negative development with ICOs and all kind of scams, and people are creating tokens just for getting quick rich. But I think we have to look a little bit further at this, and what's needed is an economic layer on top of this money layer. With Bitcoin itself, we couldn't implement all these features. That's impossible technically. At least I don't know how to do it, and I have not seen any other project who could do it. And the Bisq token is not competing with Bitcoin on a money layer. It's not money. It's a token for enabling an economic activity for the Bisq project. In specific, it's enabling the value transfer from the users who are consuming the project services to the people, to the contributors who are providing the services. And additionally, the governance elements like voting and the bonding, which adds more security for those areas which are touching the legacy system. And I think those elements are very, very different to a pure money system like Bitcoin. It has, yeah, it's another layer on top of the of Bitcoin itself.
There's one more. There are two more questions. One question from Peter. Yeah, he's asking, will the BSQ wallet be tied to your Bitcoin wallet seed? So can you hold BSQ off the platform?
Yeah, there are two wallets already implemented in Bisq, because that was already shipped a long time ago. And the seed we have implemented in a way that they're using the same seed words for usability reasons mainly. When you want to recover, so you don't need to manage two seed words. And but they're separated wallets, and we're using BIP44 to keep it technically really separate, so you cannot accidentally use then the BSQ seed for generating it on an external wallet and then spending the BSQ incorrectly, and by that burning it. Very important that the BSQ must only be used in the Bisq context and by the Bisq application itself. When some people would create their own transactions and don't understand exactly all the details, they run a very high risk that they are making an invalid transaction, and by that they are burning the BSQ. There are very strict rules how the protocol works, what is considered a valid BSQ and what not. And if anything of this is violated, then the BSQ are invalidated. And so, but all this will come with the Bisq application. It's basically nearly complete, hopefully with the next big release, with the 0.9 release in roughly 1 month. We will ship the Bisq DAO for a testnet, and then everybody is invited to help testing and play around with it. We will do it with a very short issuance period. Usually this issuance period will be roughly a month. So at the end of the month, people make their compensation requests and people will vote on this. But for the testnet to have more iterations with voting and play around with it, we will probably have a very short cycle of roughly 1 week. So people can do whatever they want on testnet. There cannot be any damage, and hopefully we will see if there are any bugs or if there are any usability issues and improve it to get ready for mainnet.
Yeah, Sparks, there's another question. Sparks is asking about most simple threads of the Bisq DAO, especially the BSQ token. So, for example, if the key stakeholders or developers collude to profit unfairly, especially if it's a very liquid market and the majority of Bisq holders won't vote or are not aware of vote. So I guess he's talking about if some changes are just voted through, where the profit goes to the ones who collude.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the majority attack scenario. So when the majority of the stakeholders, which are also mainly the founders of the project, when they want to kill the project, then they have the ability to do it, but they would be very stupid to work 5 years on this project and to not make a scammy ICO where they could easily make money probably, and to do it that way and then kill the project by acting unfair to the other contributors. So then probably everything is open source. The other contributors who feel unfairly treated will probably join forces to fork the project, and the users probably will join over to the fork when it's clear that the majority of the stakeholders have violated the values and the ideas of the project. So I'm basically not concerned about this. And important factor here is this meritocratic approach. In the beginning, the project or the tokens are still mainly distributed to the people who have worked the most on the project, because it's done by this initial distribution. But over time, when there's a bigger market, the tokens get more distributed. And then, of course, there would be a risk that anybody with deep pockets can buy up a lot of tokens and could make stupid decisions. just by, and we see this in Bitcoin, what happened the last year, a lot of the economic big players have acted quite hostile for Bitcoin with, I don't know for what reasons, but stupidity is a valid reason sometimes. And when they would, when there wouldn't be this meritocratic aspect of voting, then it would be a higher risk that it could happen sometime, that maybe a rich guy is buying up 20-30% of the tokens and can really influence then decisions in a strong way. And by the meritocratic approach, the contributors who have earned tokens over time, they still have a lot of power, voting weight, and it will be much, much harder for somebody with deep pockets to buy up so much token that they can get more like the people who have built the project. And when the people who have built the project become corrupt or do stupid things, okay, then it's time that the project get forked. So I think it's a valid case for a fork. I'm not sure if we lost Christoph. Maybe I look myself a little bit on the other questions. Yeah, I think it continues these questions regarding the majority attacker. So anything regarding their bonding, also for confiscating a bond from, for instance, an arbitrator, it will require very, very high percentage of voting, okay, something like 80%. So of course they could still do it, but at the end, when it really would unfairly destroy the bond of a contributor, like an arbitrator, without really strong reasons, then again they would risk that there will be a big a big turmoil, and people will probably fork the project and move over to another project. I mean, we have seen this in the crypto space, like when Ethereum made the hard fork with Ethereum Classic. So when their core contributors are going in the wrong direction, then they're really risking that a fork of the project is successful and that users will move over. So I think the economic incentives, it's not only economic incentives. I mean, we are starting Bisq not as a white paper where we are starting. I mean, the project is running since 2 years. It was built without any funding, basically. And I mean, all the people who have worked on the project, they have proven they've built up some reputation. And that we're going that way is another reason that basically, there is no, I think there's not a lot of reasons to assume that suddenly the core contributors become evil and try to destroy their own project. And as said, if so, it's open source, and fork is the forking risk at the end is a good protection here, so that the contributors always have to think when they're doing some decisions which might be not in the interest of the users, that at the end they're risking a fork. Are there any more questions, or otherwise I think we can wrap up here. Of course, you are free to follow up on Slack or on forum with further questions or discussions, or just join the Hangout at the next session. I don't know exactly when we do the next session, maybe in 2 weeks. And thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to go deeper into the technical details in one of the next sessions. Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye.